If you're like me and you keep most of your tackle in your boat, you don't want to mess up your nice organized boxes when you want to go kayak fishing. So I want to share with you my top 5 lures that I like to keep in a separate box just for kayak fishing on small ponds and lakes. Now when I'm talking about small bodies of water, I'm talking about little ponds, maybe small lakes that don't have boat launches and don't allow motorized boats. These places are gems a lot of the time, so if you have a kayak, get out there and find them because they receive very little fishing pressure, and if they do, people are all in kayaks, so the fish don't see a lot of stuff. Number 1 is a spinnerbait. Spinnerbaits have worked since the beginning of time, and they'll continue to work until the world ends. They are so reliable, they are so good at getting fish to bite, especially when the water is dirty. This can be used as a really good search bait on these small bodies of water, and you can fish it a variety of depths. My 2 go-to colors are white and chartreuse and white. Colorado blades, willow blades, adjust for the water temperature in your area. Colorado blades, cold water, willow blades, warm water. But throw a white spinnerbait and you'll get something. Number 2 is a Swimbait. I generally like to throw swimbaits on ponds with these hooks that have the weight on the shank of the hook. That way it doesn't get hung up as much if I just use a jig head or something. Something that imitates a small fish is always a good option. Swimbaits are dope because you can fish them deep, you can fish them shallow, you can fish them on banks. I like to drag them parallel to the banks, and I like to cast them out and let them fall. That gives me a good gauge of how deep I'm fishing because my kayak doesn't have electronics, although some of you more serious guys probably do. Swimbait's another excellent search bait, deep, shallow, whatever, throw it. Number 3 is a top water. A lot of the time you're fishing this really mucky, lily paddy type stuff. Frogs really kill it. Walking baits are my favorite top water, but they're more of like an open water top water lure, and they do work really well. I have had issues with my hookups throwing frogs. Sometimes I tend to rip the frog right out of their mouths. So I like to take a pair of pliers and bend the hooks out just a little bit. But a lot of the times these small ponds and lakes have really thick vegetation, lily pads, and that's where the frog is going to shine. These fish seem to prefer a more subtle top water, like a frog or a popper, as opposed to a big walking bait that's going to kick up all that water. Some of the biggest fish that you can get on these ponds are with a frog. Number 4 is a jig. Jigs, like spinnerbaits, will succeed on every single bass body of water until the end of time, but for ponds, they're really good at dialing in spots. Kind of like a swimbait, you can fish them shallow, you can fish them deep, but a lot of the time your big hookups on banks and on docks are gonna come on jigs. I love jig fishing. I like just bobbing this thing right along the bottom, dragging it across until I feel that tick tick. Jigs can also be punched through those heavy mats a lot of the time, and they can be fished along deep rock piles too. I'm gonna be using a Yum Money Craw as a trailer today. Any green pumpkin jig and green pumpkin trailer is gonna get the job done. Lastly, probably the king of pond fishing lures is a Wacky Rig Senko. I know a lot of guys, if they only had one fishing lure to fish with the rest of their life, they would pick a Senko. The thing just catches fish. There's no explanation. Wacky Rig, Texas Rig, it doesn't matter what you do, it's gonna get freaking destroyed. Personally, I think Wacky Rig catches more fish. I have caught fish on Texas Rig as well, but I'll always throw the Wacky Rig. Some fish blowing up over there, getting me fired up. The Wacky Rig is just so good. You can skip it under docks, you can put it in vegetation, you can let it sink down to the bottom. Fish will eat it, cast it out, and then just watch your line. It's so much fun. My favorite color is this green with the white belly on it. I think it's watermelon white maybe, but any green is gonna work awesome. I wanna make one honorable mention, the Fluke. I only chose one weightless soft plastic for this video, the Senko, but Flukes are just as good. I have another video on Flukes that I'll link in the description below. Also, one other thing that you want to keep in your box is a little pair of cutters. I got these for like $6 on Amazon. I've had them for 3 years. They don't cut braid the best, but they work, and if I lose them, it's not a big deal. So next time you're driving around and you see that pond with all the lily pads and muck on it, try throwing these lures.